Welcome to the Becoming Human podcast. And today I want to talk about why I recommend affirmations. So if you think about it, you're really affirming things all day, whether you're conscious of it or not. So to have the ability to be able to engage in that thought process consciously is huge. The first time I was made aware of this concept was while I was still in the military. I was in the Marine Corps. And I stumbled across a book by a woman named Louise L. Hay. I walk into the library and, I don't know what pulled me there. Maybe I was just bored, but I followed my intuition. I walked into the library and there was this yellow book sticking out on a card on a shelf. I don't remember completely, but it was the only yellow book. And I just walked over to it, grabbed it, and started to read it, checked it out, and just read it. Maybe part of it was the military. You had time sometime and but I read the book. And she started to introduce concepts to me that made perfect sense, but can't say that I really gave that much attention to. And one of those concepts was every thought you think is creating your reality. Now, we hear phrases like that all the time now. It's in pop culture. We hear it casually. You see it scrolling online. But, when I found that book, I never really heard that before. I can't say that I ever had. Occasionally, I may have heard athletes say, you got to visualize yourself making the free throw before you take the shot and then it'll go in. So, I heard of the thought affecting your reality to that extent, but not in life in its totality. So that was really, groundbreaking for me. That was kind of life shattering in a way. And, but, I want to kind of go back a little bit, to in the military, where we were just at, but just a little further back and just talk about how, with dealing with PTSD and then alcoholism, you go through programs and therapies and whatnot, and you kind of accept, or it's implied, or in some ways you're told that you have to live with these conditions for the rest of your life. And I just didn't believe that. And that's not any shade or shame on anybody who does, because there's a power in some of that, in some of that psychology, and I'll go into that as well. But for me, I just didn't believe it. There wasn't any denial or anything. I just didn't accept it that I would have to live with those conditions for the rest of my life. So, hearing what Louise L. Hay was saying in her book was super powerful, because it's like, okay, here's a key. Here's one of the keys to transformation. Another part to that was I met a therapist who showed me a simple breath and thought exercise that interrupted the thought process and allowed you to replace one thought process with another while simultaneously changing the sensation that you have in your body, that you feel in your body. And I'll share that with you too at the end of the episode. I guess we could do just a little breathing or a guided meditation together. And so that was super, super important, just understanding that what I was feeling was a cycle and a thought process. Okay, I guess a great way to break this down is exploring like what truth is, right? So you have absolute truth and then you have relative truth. So we can say absolute truth is something that everybody experienced to be true. So let's say at birth, everyone inhales. And at death, everyone's final breath is an exhale. That might be something, that's probably something that everyone knows to be true, accepts to be true. Now, whether someone can overcome a particular obstacle or not, that's relative truth. Okay, so what makes something true for an individual? An emotion will make something true for an individual. So what's an emotion? An emotion is a sensation. Now, the cool thing about this, when you put it into perspective, is you have millions of sensations every day, but most of them you give no attention to. You don't even recognize them. So why is there so much emphasis on the sensations that you have that transform into or express themselves into strong emotions? Why is there such an emphasis on those? Well, you can say that maybe your environment, we focus on two things. So maybe your environment reinforces that sensation. So therefore you have a strong emotion attached to it. It manifests or it expresses itself as a strong emotion. The other thing is you can say because, say maybe the environment reinforces that sensation, now all of a sudden your brain reinforces it also. And now you have a loop. Okay? Now, as I was learning, I'm learning practices that um, interrupts the sensation and then interrupts the loop. Okay? Now, this requires practicing focus, and this requires practicing discipline, or else the benefits would be very short-lived. Okay? Now, going back to when I mentioned like the psychology of accepting that you may not be able um, to change. You know, I went to a number of different AA groups. I would probably say maybe like 9 or 10 of them. I didn't go for a long period of time. Um, I definitely saw the benefit in being there, and it definitely offered me a benefit too. It gave me perspective. It showed me what life could look like if I didn't um, tap into myself and find a way to make some life changes. Um, but one of the things that really struck me right away was a lot of people didn't just accept that they had a problem, which is very important, that they want to address. Um, there was this underlying depression in a lot of in several of the groups that I went to. And it had to do with the fact that people were accepting that this would be a problem for life. So identity has shifted from someone with the problem to um, the group. And this group identity was kind of built around suffering through this problem for life. Now, there is a benefit to that, right? Because some people may truly believe that um, that they can't do it. And this group and groups like that offer a tremendous space for people who just feel like they can't do it, who've been defeated so much that um, they can't tap into something within themselves. They really need the group, and the group is has strength around this collective identity, and that's powerful. And we need those groups. Because I definitely see the benefit, and I still do recommend them to people, and I've taken people to groups, and I've sat in groups with people. So this isn't a shame on the groups. Like, we need the groups, but it's a relative truth. That's not absolutely true for everybody. And that was one of the things I was coming to terms with. And that was one of the things that I had some resistance with, even with some people who were in the groups who were in a way trying to shame me because the group was what they known to work. And here I was just having this knowing inside of me, not not disrespecting anything that they were doing, because I benefited from it, from the community, but just having this knowing inside of me that, okay, like, all right, I could tap into something, I could do this, and having tools too. I had tools, and that was something that, as I've been to different groups over the years, the tools aren't readily available to the degree to which I had access to, and that plays a big part in that collective identity around the suffering of the group, and kind of building strength off of that. So, what were some of the techniques? So, affirmation was a huge one, right? That was one of the ones that Louise L. Hay like really hit home, shaping your reality through um, the types of thoughts that you have. There is a way to do this. There's a technique, right? Because you don't want to just have this tug of war in your head all day, saying, "No, I'm gonna think this. No, I'm gonna think this." And your subconscious and your conscious mind are just kind of clashing, and you'll feel a lot of stress, and it'll be defeating the purpose. So one of the steps that she recommended was whenever you felt a strong sensation, you pause for a second, breathe in. You say, I recognize you with love, whatever that sensation is, whether it be anger, what have you. I release you and I let you go. It could be fear, it can be frustration, it could be doubt, it could be a form of addiction. In fact, I use a form of addiction in that phrase. I would say, I recognize you with love, alcohol, I release you and I let you go. I recognize you with love, stress, and I release you and I let you go. Whatever temptation I felt, I would insert that into that phrase and just have a deep breath. And as I became aware of the sensations I was feeling in my body, I found myself doing that phrase, recalibrating, doing that process, that breath, that phrase, that inhale, that phrase, that exhale, dozens of times a day, 30, 40 times a day. And what I came to realize were these were all of the interruptions that were pulling me in directions that I didn't want to be pulled. While I was in the Marine Corps, um, even though like I would, have fun with my friends at work and we would perform well together at work and do an incredible job, outside of work, I was a mess and get into altercations with people, get into lots of trouble, get into fights and all kinds of stuff. And when my chain of command would, you know, get ready to punish me, they would ask me, why would I do that? And my 100% truthful answer was, I don't know. Like I really had no explanation. I know that wasn't my intention to get in trouble, but somehow I would just get pulled and would have no self-control. And of course, alcohol was a part of that, but there was a decision to indulge in alcohol too that, led to those decisions. And so, I would just be speechless. Like, I don't know why I did it. But doing that exercise, I started to realize that these are all of those little moments that are pulling me in directions that I don't want to be in. And now I have this tool to recalibrate in the moment and address those moments. And that was huge. And so that was one aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it was the affirmations themselves, just having a routine thought process that you can express and embody every day and have that as a reminder of the quality that you want to be. And so I did these practices, the qualities that you want to have. And I did these practices every day faithfully for 7 or 8 years. And even to today, like aspects of it are still incorporated in my daily routines. But just as you grow, you change, and you have experiences, you have to be adaptable and you want to be able to make the tweaks and changes that you need in order to sustain your growth and continue to grow. First thing in the morning when I wake up, affirmation. Before I went to bed, affirmation. And I would just repeat them over and over and over again as I went to sleep and a few times as I woke up. So part of one that I still use today, I don't remember all of them because they've changed over the years, but an aspect of kind of one of the first ones I still say today on a regular basis is I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm whole. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm whole. So that one, it speaks truth for as long as I'm here. So that one, it stayed, but other aspects of the affirmation, it's changed over the years because who I am who I was, who I am, who I will be. It's always changing. So, so my affirmations have changed. But the constant that I want to sustain for, uh, that doesn't have to change with the fluctuations of life is my happiness, right? And I can maintain a best quality of health that I can in the circumstances that I had. And I could be well regardless of my circumstances. I could be well up here regardless of my circumstances. I could be healthy up here regardless of my circumstances. And I could be happy up here regardless of my circumstances. So these are the constants that hasn't changed, but other parts of my affirmation uh, has changed. Now, the therapist that I worked with and the breath exercises and the thought exercise that she had me do, it was super simple, but it was very powerful. Um, so she had me kind of sit down and think about how I was feeling, right? And okay, here, I have the feeling. I've pinpointed it. I feel it. I feel it in my body. I feel it in my shoulders. I recognize it in my breath. All right, so now I want to create a bubble in my mind. And this bubble, I want to put the sensation in the bubble that I want to feel. I recognize how I feel. Now I want to put the opposite feeling, the feeling that I want to feel in there, and be specific, right? Um, if you're feeling depressed or anxious, right? Maybe you might want to feel calm or clarity. Like be specific about the emotion that you want to put in that bubble that you have. Okay, now you have your imaginary bubble. You can keep your eyes open and you can visualize it if that helps, because some people really have a difficulty visualizing with their eyes closed. Their mind will start to wander a lot. So you can take your hands and like literally create a bubble and hold it up if you need to. I've done that. I've modified things to fit as I need them, and it's important to have that flexibility as well. But you take that bubble and you put that emotion in there, that sensation in there, right? And now that that sensation is in there, you want to take 10 slow, deep breaths into your abdomen. 1, 2. With each breath, 3. You're giving energy to that sensation that you want to have. 4, 5. You're giving energy to that sensation. You're giving power to that sensation. The new sensation, the one that's in your bubble. You're filling up your bubble with this energy. 6. Even bigger. This is your energy. You're putting it into the bubble. You're harnessing it. One more. On that last one, that huge inhale, you let that energy, that calm, whatever you put into that bubble, burst and just wash over you. And you feel it on that exhale. You inhale, it explodes, and exhale, you really just relax into the sensation, okay? One big breath, huge. And so this took us about 1 minute. It actually took a little bit longer than it should because I was talking. But, you know, I would go out into the car at work or something like this at lunchtime and just do this 1 or 2 times. It took 1 or 2 minutes, but it would help me recalibrate. And so I hope this was helpful for someone. Um, Having the ability to recalibrate is so important, and not being at the mercy of all of the stimulation that you have in your life. So it's really vital that you be intentional about your emotional health and your emotional awareness. I would say more so because an emotional awareness leads to emotional health. So be intentional about emotional awareness. Understand that stimulation is around you, and for a period of time, I made the mistake of trying to push things away. Like avoiding stimulation, um, avoiding TV, avoiding certain people, and sometimes you may need to do that for a certain period of time. But more than anything, avoidance is still stressful and is still contributing to the way you feel. If you're feeling stressed or anxious or depressed, you really want to create some space in your life to cultivate those skills, cultivate that level of awareness, and be able to recalibrate yourself in those moments. If it's just stepping away for a moment, breathe in, or in your mind while you're in the moment. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling this person is saying some things that's kind of rubbing me the wrong way. All right. What up? Just right there while I'm listening. Bless you with love in my mind. Release you. I let you go. So just having that ability to recognize and then recalibrate in the moment is so huge. And you'll start to see that relationships in your life will be reshaped. You'll start to see that circumstances in your life will start to change over a period of time. And this is simply because you're not reinforcing the pattern, right? So much of the things that happen to us, or so much of the things that happen, we feel like they happen to us. And sometimes people may have an intention to actually harm you. So that's a fact. But a lot of the things that happen around us, we interpret them as happening to us because we are reinforcing the pattern and reinforcing the stimulation within the environment. So I hope this was helpful to someone. And may you have a wonderful day. And like always, I will share whatever I feel could be helpful and just offer whatever skills and techniques that I have that has helped me in hopes that they reach the right person because I know they could be of help to them too. So have a wonderful day.